Wondered how your arm is actually attached to your body? I mean, this thing can throw a baseball, paint a picture, give a massive hug. It's incredibly mobile. It's a pretty amazing piece of biological engineering, right? It solves a huge puzzle. How do you attach something that needs to move so much to a solid, stable torso? Well, let's dive into the super elegant solution our bodies came up with. So, what is the secret sauce here? Why can you swing your arm in a giant circle when your leg, which is built to hold you up, has a way more limited range of motion? The answer, believe it or not, isn't really in the arm itself. It's all about its anchor. And that anchor is what we call the shoulder girdle. Now, this isn't just one big bone. Oh no, it's a really clever setup of a couple of key bones that gives our arm all that freedom while, keeping it from falling off. It's the body's perfect compromise between being able to move freely and staying stable. All right, so let's get to know the bones that make up this amazing anchor. We're going to start with the two superstars of the shoulder girdle. First up, we've got the clavicle. You probably know it as your collarbone. I like to think of it as a connector strut. And get this, it is the one and only bone that directly connects your entire arm and shoulder to the main part of your skeleton. Go on, you can feel it right now, that long bone sitting right at the top of your chest. See if you can feel that gentle S curve it has. That's not just for show. That shape actually adds a ton of strength and helps it handle force. And here's a little fun fact for you. The clavicle is the very first bone in the entire body to start hardening up, a process called ossification when a baby is still developing. Pretty cool, right? So this one little bone has three massive jobs. First, it's the physical link for your arm. Second, it's like a shock absorber, transmitting force from your arm to your torso. And third, it creates this protective archway over all the really important nerves and blood vessels that are heading down into your arm. It's a connector, a transmitter, and a protector, all rolled into one. Okay, on to our second superstar bone, the scapula, or your shoulder blade. Now, if the clavicle is that rigid strut, the scapula is what I call the floating wing. It's this big triangular bone that literally just glides across your upper back. It provides a moving platform that your arm can work from. This view gives us a fantastic look at the scapula and its whole neighborhood. You can see right where it meets up with the clavicle and the humerus. That's your upper arm bone. But the real magic is in the details, so let's zoom in on a few key spots that you absolutely have to know. First, say hello to the acromion. If you trace your collarbone all the way out to the side, that hard bony point you feel at the very top of your shoulder, yep, that's it. That's the acromion. Think of it as the roof of your shoulder, and it's where that scapula wing connects to the clavicle strut. Now, tucked away underneath the clavicle, there's this weird hook-shaped bit of bone called the coracoid process. You can't really feel this one, but trust me, it is so important. It acts as a super strong anchor point for a bunch of key muscles and ligaments that help you control your shoulder. And finally, check this out, the glenoid cavity. Just look at how shallow that little socket is. This is where your arm bone actually connects. Its flatness is the whole secret behind your arm's incredible range of motion, but as we're going to find out, it's also kind of the source of its biggest weakness. Okay, so we've met the individual bones, the strut and the wing. Now for the really cool part. Let's see how these puzzle pieces fit together to create the actual working joints of the shoulder. We're going to build this shoulder from the inside out, looking at three absolutely crucial joints. We'll start where the whole thing anchors to the body, then connect our strut and wing, and finish up with the main event, the shoulder joint itself. This shows you perfectly how the clavicle is just a master connector. It has two totally different ends for two totally different jobs. On one side, you have the blocky sternal end that connects to your sternum, your breastbone, and forms the sternoclavicular joint. This is it. This is the arm's only bony connection to your entire trunk. Then, the flatter acromial end reaches out to meet the acromion on the scapula, forming the acromioclavicular joint. And here is what that connection between the strut and the wing looks like in a real person. On this X-ray, you can clearly see that acromioclavicular joint, or what we call the AC joint. It's this small but absolutely vital link at the top of the shoulder that lets the scapula pivot and glide around. Now for the main attraction, the glenohumeral joint. And honestly, there is no better way to understand how this joint works than with this classic analogy. If you remember only one thing from this whole explainer, make it this one. It all comes down to a mismatch in size. The head of your humerus, your upper arm bone, is like a big golf ball. And the glenoid cavity of the scapula, that's the tiny shallow T. This design is what gives you that massive range of motion, right? But you can probably see the problem here. It's not very stable. That ball could fall off the tee pretty easily, which is exactly why all the muscles around it are so incredibly important. And speaking of those important muscles, for all you students out there watching, here is a classic mnemonic that will help you absolutely crush your next anatomy exam. It's all about remembering which muscles attach where at the top of the humerus. Okay, here's how it works. The humerus has this groove near the top, and 3 major muscles attach right in there. To remember the order, just think a lady between 2 majors. The latissimus dorsi tendon, that's our lady, sits right in the middle of the groove, between 2 majors, the pectoralis major on the outside and the teres major on the inside. Simple, easy to remember, and a total lifesaver on exam day. So we've seen this brilliant design, but that incredible mobility comes at a price. What happens when this elegant anchor system gets pushed a little too far? Let's take a look at some common injuries. This might actually surprise you, but because of its position and that job it has of transmitting force, that little slender clavicle is one of the bones that people break most often. And this X-ray shows you exactly why. The bone did its job. It took the force from an impact to protect everything else, but the force was just too much for it to handle, and the strut snapped. You can see really clearly how the pieces have been pushed out of place. One of the most common ways this stuff happens is from what doctors call a foosh, which stands for a fall on an outstretched hand. You know when you trip and you instinctively put your hand out to catch yourself? Well, all that force travels right up the chain, from your hand, through your forearm, up your arm bone, and then bam, it slams right into the shoulder girdle. And depending on the angle, that can break your wrist, your arm, or very often, your clavicle. Which really brings us to our final question here. When you look at the shoulder girdle, what do you see? Is it a brilliant, elegant design that gives us the freedom to reach out and interact with the world? Or is it a fragile compromise, always just one bad fall away from breaking? The real answer, of course, is that it's both. And that incredible duality is what makes it one of the most fascinating structures in the entire human body.